And before we get started, I'd also just love to hear from you and where you're at. I'm going to launch 2 polls. And what I'm looking at here is the type of arthritis you may have, and then also the location. Excuse me. Obviously, tonight's session is very much focused on the spine and the upper body. So this is why the answers are only limited to those areas. Likewise with the arthritis type, there are so many different types of arthritis. We know this, so I have not included them all. I would not have enough room to do so, but I've listed the most common. If you would like to share which arthritis you have and I have not included it, please feel free to do that in the chat box. I will launch poll question 1, which is the type of arthritis. It will be great if you could participate. So you should see that poll on your screen now. And OA is osteoarthritis, RA is rheumatoid. We have psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, and other. A resounding osteoarthritis seems to be the most common. Not surprised, not surprised. Fantastic. I'll end the poll there. Thank you for participating. It is anonymous, so I will share these results. They may be interesting to you. As you can see there, most people here tonight have a form or have osteoarthritis in some form of joint, of which we're just about to find out. Let's go to our second question, and I'll launch that now. And I'm asking your location. So what joint? Is it cervical, being your neck? Is it thoracic, the mid part of your back? Is it the lumbar or the low part of your back? Is it generally throughout your spine, including the sacroiliac joints? Is it in your shoulder? Is it in your hands or your fingers? Interesting to see that majority of people here tonight have osteoarthritis, and that the most common location here tonight is our hands, that arthritis is in our hands and our fingers. I'll end that poll, and if you're curious to see the results of this evening's group, there they are on your screen. So we got neck and shoulder tying there almost. And then we've got hands and fingers being the most common. Oh, good. So now I know how to sort of tailor this evening's session, and we'll spend most of our time there. Good to know, because I do, and I have included a little some exercises to do with the thoracic on the mid-back area. So looking at this poll now, I can sort of breeze through that a little bit quicker. All right. Thank you so much for participating. Okay, let's get to it. Like all our sessions, the presentation contains general information and advice only. Every effort has been made to ensure that the information is accurate, reliable. The content of the presentation is not a substitute for individual treatment advice of your doctor or your healthcare professional, and certainly always consult with your doctor or healthcare provider to obtain individual medical and or treatment advice. The information here tonight is here to aid you, to provide some variety, and for you to take this content back to potentially a healthcare practitioner that you might have a discussion with about these types of exercises, and if they will be helpful and applicable to you. Very quickly, the outline. We will just brush over why physical activity or movement is important for people with arthritis. If you've come along to our previous webinars, you probably will have heard that and understand that, but it's always good to just make sure that we're all on the same level playing field. This tonight's session is based on the Get Moving Plus exercise series. These are found free on our website. It is a PDF for each joint or area that I've selected to look at, with exercises, and majority of them, except for the hand, exercise PDF comes with videos that you can follow along with. So tonight we're going to have a look at the spine, and I will mainly focus on the cervical spine, since that's what the poll indicated. We'll have a look at the shoulder. We'll also have a look at the hand, and I think that's where we'll spend a little bit more of the time, though it is the last one. We will briefly have a brief look at anatomy and function, because it's always good to have some understanding of what that is and what's it about. Then we'll have a look at exercises in no particular order here, but exercises that promote mobility. They include stretches as well, some stretches, and exercises to promote strength of muscles around a particular joint. Now, I have not been able to include every single exercise, mobility exercise, strength exercise, or stretch. It's just not doable to cover the upper body and the spine exercises. So please jump on our website and you can see the PDF and all the exercises for yourself at your own leisure. Okay, very, very quickly, movement, any type of movement is so important for joints that have arthritis, mostly any form of arthritis, particularly osteoarthritis. But movement helps to nourish our cartilage and our bone. And the reason is cartilage is very much like a sponge. If you recall SpongeBob SquarePants and me and my explanation of what cartilage is like a sponge where it soaks up synovial fluid or water from the surrounding area or synovial membrane and fluid of the particular joint. Now, it doesn't have a nervous system and it doesn't have a blood supply, so it doesn't have a waste removal system. It doesn't have anything to help feed it and to keep it healthy, but it does have this synovial fluid surrounding the cartilage. And like I said, the cartilage is like a sponge where it soaks it up, and this is its way to remove wastes and to get nutrition. But the way that it does this is through this synovial pump mechanism. And basically the sponge soaks up water, but then to allow to pump it out, movement has to occur, particularly weight bearing or loading movement. So movement, particularly loading type movements, helps to pump the water in and out of the cartilage, which nourishes it and keeps it healthy. So this is why it's so important to engage in physical activity and move our joints as much as we can. Of course, exercise, physical activity, and movement maintains joint range and flexibility of what we have. We want to maintain this. It also maintains strength of our muscles, and we can actually improve, not just maintain, but improve, get stronger. It reduces feelings of stiffness and pain, and it may also help reduce and slow the progression of the disease. Okay, let's get stuck into it with spine anatomy and function. So the spine here are what we call synovial joints. All the joints that we're talking about this evening are synovial joints, meaning that they are encapsulated with fluid, essentially, and they allow some form of movement, basically. The joints of the spine are these right here, these little arrows that you can see. These joints here, these are the articulating areas or parts of what we call the vertebrae. And these are gliding joints. So they're somewhat flat, and they'll essentially glide on each other. And without going into too much detail, they provide us with flexion. So that's bending forward, side flexion, bending to the side. They also provide us with extension, so bending backwards, and they also provide us with a form of rotation. And depending on what section of spine, so cervical spine, your upper neck, your thoracic, your mid-back, they'll provide varying and different degrees of movement, essentially. And it's these facet joints right in this area here that is affected by mostly osteoarthritis. This is where osteoarthritis lives. But for those people with rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, or any other form of arthritis, Yes, these facet joints may be affected. Not only they may be affected, it is the ligaments and the tendons that run up and down either side of the spine as well. And so what happens with the joint surfaces from the arthritis is sometimes it can become a little bit undulating and bumping, and bony growths occur. So these joints can't slide on each other nicely and smoothly, which means sometimes we can't move and open into flexion, and sometimes we can't slide back down into extension. And this is where it causes us pain, and this is where it reduces our range of motion. But if we engage in some joint specific activities, like the ones I'm about to show you, we may help promote movement in these areas and help promote that synovial pump, or if you remember SpongeBob SquarePants, so moving the fluid in and out of that cartilage. Okay, very quickly, and I don't even know why I've actually really included this, because there's too many muscles to look at here. But the main muscles of the spine, and I'm not going to go into them, all of them, the major ones we could say are the erectus spinae or spinae group. And these are big, long muscles that run up along the side of our spine, and they provide a lot of stabilizing, keeping us erect, but also allowing us to go into extension. But what sits on top of them is large muscles like the trapezius here. You may be aware of that. You might have grief of your upper neck trap muscle, this muscle here. That's the trapezius muscle here. Also, we have latissimus dorsi as well. You may have heard of that. And these sit over the top of the erectus spinae. We then have the abdominal group, or the core. And the core isn't just made up of the abdominal group anteriorly. They're also made up of muscles at the back, small and large, and also the pelvic, deep pelvic muscles or floor muscles as well. So there are 4 layers here, and they're important that we still maintain some strength within our core to allow us to do any type of movement or exercise. We also have these deep core neck muscles as well. So I have an exercise here to promote strength of this area as well. You have a large muscle here. As you can see, when I turn, it should pop out. Hopefully I've got some shadow. And this is your sternocleidomastoid. So that's a big muscle at the front there too. Taking that away, we've got smaller, deeper muscles of the neck. And we've got some exercises to focus on those. So first of all, we have the neck mobility. And this serves as not just movement, but also, I suppose, as a stretch. And this isn't rocket science here. This is just moving your neck in the ways that the bones allow them to. So the first one being flexion and extension. So we want to take our chin as far as we can to our chest. And in doing so, you may even feel actually a nice stretch at the back here. But what's happening with those facet joints is they're sliding open and they're moving forward as we go into flexion. That's the movement that we want to promote, particularly of those that are affected by osteoarthritis. And then what we want to do is close those facet joints in our spine and tip our neck back into extension. And we want to move through these ranges as much and as well as we can. We don't need to do it fast, but just doing it in a controlled motion is fine. Rotation is important, something that we may lose quickly and often not very good when we want to be driving around a lot. I saw somebody mentioning that when they're trying to look behind them when they're driving. So we want to ensure that we can get our chin to our mid clavicle. This is where we want to get it. Okay, we want to make sure that we can get our chin to or past our mid clavicle point. And again, not rocket science here. You want to maintain the motion or the range of motion that you have. So just practicing those motions. When you're feeling stiff, when you're feeling sore, try to maintain that motion by engaging in that rotation movement. And the last but not least is side bending. So trying to keep your head looking straight ahead, dropping your ear to your shoulder, just like so. And you might even get a nice stretch across here. That's a bonus. You could feel a pinching sensation here or a sore sensation here as well. So on this side, those facet joints are closing. They might have trouble doing that if you have osteoarthritis or a form of arthritis in your neck. So we just want to make sure that whatever movements that we're doing it in a controlled manner. And we want to go gently into discomfort. Okay. Now, I encourage you to read the Get Moving Plus preamble on the PDFs that are on our website, because they'll go into how many repetitions you might like to do and how many sets you might like to do. Moving on, if you feel like you need a little bit more help doing this motion, sometimes doing it passively can also help. So doing it passively means that you may not be fully actively engaging your muscles in a sense that you're telling yourself to rotate. You might like to use an aid like a towel here. So all you do is you pop the towel over your shoulder like so. Place one towel down in front of your chest. I can't really see myself. I hope I'm actually looking. There we go. I'm in camera, right? Then you want to swap your hands like so. Pull down on one end, pull the towel across your ear, across your forehead, pull this down, make this stable. And with your other arm here, you want to gently take your neck through range. And this can sometimes help because it can help make us feel supported while we're moving into that range, and our arm can gently help guide us through. The same with the other exercise here. It's similar to using a towel, but we're going to use our hands. And picture this is you. You have lovely hair, you have this lovely, beautiful neck and shoulders. Pretend this is you. This blue line here is your spine. You should be able to feel back here and feel the bumps of your spine. That's your spinous processes, right? Let's just say I'm going to look to my right hand side. Okay, I'm going to look to my right hand side. I'm going to grab my right arm and I'm going to bring my hand around my neck. I'm going to find my spinous processes, but I'm just going to come off them. I'm going to place my hands here. Do you see my poor attempt at drawing fingers in blue? So you're not going to be on your spine, but you're going to be just off them, okay? And with your elbow, with your fingers gripping into your muscles, gently there, with your elbow, pull your elbow around to the right, okay? Very much just like using the towel. This is active assisted. And again, it might feel like you just got a little bit more support in that motion. You might be able to gain a little bit more motion with your arm assisting you. Okay, here we got some strong chin tucks here. So with your hand on your chin to engage your core neck muscles here, we want to, this is a guide, gently push the chin into your neck. So you're going to flatten out this part here, basically. Give yourself a double, triple, quadruple chin, whichever one you have. It's lovely. Bring it on. Gently push in till you don't necessarily need the finger prompt anymore. You can also do this lying down and place your hand just at the back of your head, and essentially do it when you're lying down in your bed or perhaps a harder surface and you want to squash your hands with the back of your head. So squash your hands with the back of your head. Some stretches, if you'd like to perform some stretches of your neck. Again, if we hold stretches for a while, it can certainly help ease pain and stiffness and allow or increase range of motion. So first of all, if you want to stretch this side of your neck, place that same hand under your bottom. Place your other hand. I'll just make sure I'm in screen. Apologies. Yep. Place your other hand over your head. And then you want to just gently pull it to the side while you drop this shoulder away. Okay. And you just want to feel a gentle pull. And if you want to play around with that a little bit and get a slightly different angle, drop your chin to your chest pocket or your armpit, and then gently pull it towards that angle. And you might feel the stretch move further around your neck. Okay, so that's also a really good one to try and do. Now, you may not realize it, but you might actually be quite tight, or have a feeling of tightness at the front of your neck. And these muscles need to be ready to roll when we want to move through range. So another great stretch for the front of our neck is the anterior muscle neck stretch. So let's just say I want to stretch the right hand side here. Place your left hand on your clavicle or your collarbone, okay? Just sitting directly on top of it. Place the other hand on top, and you want to add some gentle pressure down and to the right, okay? To stretch this area here, you're going to look up and away. And you want to keep your mouth closed when you do this, by the way, okay? So you can feel a nice stretch through here. So doing those ranges of motions and taking yourself through these stretches, you might like to do this on the daily, particularly when you wake up or just after you've woken up. And this, again, may help move that fluid within those facet joints and allow it to free you up a little bit. Okay, here's this thoracic spine. And now we really didn't have a lot of people who had it of the spine, but there are many, many fantastic exercises and mobility tricks and tips that you can do. They're all here, but they're also on the PDF versions as well with videos. But these are some of my favorites. I will go with 2A, this one here. This is the open book. So you want to be lying on your side, okay? And basically you're just going to follow your arm around and you want it to tap the other side of the floor. And here what we're doing is we're promoting rotation of the thoracic spine. So often we have reduced rotational capacity and extension capacity as we get older, and we want to ensure that we maintain that. So doing this quadruped rotation exercise, so that's 1A. Doing the lying 2A exercise is also really good for that, and 3A here as well, which you could just do with me right now while you're seated. So all you're going to do is with your arms to help assist you move, say I'm going to rotate to my right. Take your left hand or your arm to your right knee on the outside. Your other hand goes behind the back of the chair, and you're gently just going to rotate as much as you feel you can. And then you add a little overpressure with your arms, sort of adding that rotational force, okay? Extension is another range that we seem to we lose it over time. So what we're going to do here, you can't really see, is 4B. We're going to promote extension by using the back of our chairs, ensuring that the chair is stable, it's not on wheels, so it doesn't flip out underneath you. But you can see where this chair ends, actually in a really good spot for me, and I just bend over it essentially. You can also get a bolster like the one in 5B, and you can lie down and place that at the spot where you feel it's most sticky, or where you feel most stiff, for example. And so you put the bolster there and you gently roll over it like so. So I try to provide some variety here for those who can get to the floor, for those who are able to, or who can do it in a seated position. Cat camel or cat cow, whichever one you like to say or do, is another great exercise for flexing our spine and extending our spine. Superman here is fantastic for core control or promoting core stability, on building that and maintaining that strength. So you want to ensure that hips stay level, shoulders stay level. Oh my God, I've just got an alert that my computer is going to decide to update in 39 minutes. So 29 minutes. So I better I do apologize. That's okay. That should be 8:30 and we should be okay. Don't you love and hate technology at the same time? I didn't want that, but it's saying that I need to. And we also have what we call a prone cobra hold. Now, this is done on the floor, but you can do similar against a wall or get a similar effect against the wall, doing something slightly different. And here we're actually engaging a lot of the glutes, but we're also engaging a lot of those erector spinae at the back as well. So all you need to do is place your hands, I guess, next to your cheekbones is fine. So elbows out to the side, and without moving too much of the neck or the head, keeping that as much as we can in a neutral spine, is just lifting the chest off the floor. And we're doing that using our erector spinae and our glute muscles here to stabilize at the hips. So some really fantastic exercises here to strengthen the core and the spine. Okay, here we have the shoulder. And there were a few people here tonight that had issues with the shoulder. So again, it's a synovial joint. Yes, it's encapsulated. It has a synovial membrane, synovial fluid. It has cartilage that needs to be nourished through movement. It's a ball and socket, or it's a very shallow ball and socket joint, and that allows for lots of movement. So multi-axial joint. So it helps us, it promotes flexion and extension. So taking the arm forward and extension all the way back. We've got abduction, adduction out to the side and adding back to the body. And we also have rotation, internal and external rotation. And then, of course, we have full circumduction. So we really should be able to still do those those movements and do them in full. And if not, then you want to choose the movement that you are lacking and really focus on doing exercises or movements that promote engaging that and pushing those boundaries. So the shoulder muscles here, we have lots of large muscles that sit on the outside. While the trapezius doesn't necessarily move the shoulder, but it certainly helps stabilize it. We have the big deltoid that sits over the top. There it is at the back. There it is at the front. So that's the cap of the shoulder. We also have pec major that sits at the front here. That also helps with movement of our shoulder. Then we also have, if you take those muscles off and away, we have these smaller muscles that sit underneath. You may be familiar, if you've got shoulder pain, particularly up here, you might be familiar with the supraspinatus or these smaller muscles under here, the infraspinatus, teres major, minor. We also have rhomboids as well that help stabilize movement of the scapula, moving it along the thoracic, the rib cage. Okay, so these are some movements or exercises here to promote mobility and strength. Now, if you if you are really suffering with a stiff shoulder, you may have arthritis. Yes, you might also have something that's called a frozen shoulder. I'm not sure if anybody here has that tonight. These pendulum swings are really, really good for that. It's so gentle. You get a slight traction due to the gravity of pulling the arm, the weight of the arm pulling it down, and you're just going to let it fall, and you're just going to swing the shoulder into gentle circles, all side to side and forward and back. I was thinking to show you, but I really don't think I can. Oh, look, I sort of can. If I bend over like I am in the picture, and I just sort of give it a little bit of a swing, and I try to let it swing. That's what we want. Side to side, if we can, forward and back, and in circles. So that's a great exercise if you do feel stiff in the shoulders from arthritis, but potentially also frozen shoulder or capsulitis. Now, it doesn't really promote that pumping action because we're not loading the shoulder, but it certainly promotes movement. Here we have me lying supine on my back with a dowel. This can be weighted or not at all, but this is just to promote general movement of the shoulder. And using that dowel, you can take the dowel as far as you can over your head. Here we have Here we have some wall angels. So standing against the wall, you want your arms, the back of your arms touching the wall as best you can. So you want to retract your scapulars. So those bones at the back of your shoulders, pull them towards your spine. And you want to try and maintain contact with the wall as best you can, breathing normally, and drive the arms up and then bring the elbows back down towards the rib cage. So these are called wall angels. You can do them without the wall, but the wall is important as it acts as a guide, but also it promotes the range of motion that we need to do this. So we're not sort of bending forward and trying to do it. It's helping us to stand upright, essentially. Here's another exercise to promote movement, but also strength of the back, yes, but also of the rhomboids, particularly, and the lower trapezius areas. So here's the I, Y, T, W, and O. So trying to maintain a steady and controlled position, laying face down, you're going to just start with lifting the arms off the floor, okay? That's your I. And then as you can see, you can go to the Y and the T. So that's just want to make sure that I'm in shot there. So that's just lifting up. So that's your I, Y, T, oh no, sorry, T, W like so, and the O, you create an O behind your back. And you can just go through those different types of motions, or the alphabet in a sense. And that, yeah, good. I can see some people doing it. And again, that promotes strength at different angles, which we want and we need to maintain so we can do activities of daily living. Because we don't walk around like robots. No, we're more fluid and we want to promote strength at different angles, okay? So you can read more about how to do that in the PDF, like all of our exercises here tonight. Now, if you want more strength, well, look, you can now move to the Get Moving, just the Get Moving program or exercise series, and you can look at more weight-based exercises. But here they're still working with TheraBands, okay? Stretchy TheraBands. So we have a row where we attach a TheraBand to something stable in front of us, and we want to pull it towards us, okay? This helps strengthen the posterior shoulder muscles and low back muscles as well. We also have side raises as well. This helps promote stability here in the shoulder, those shoulder muscles, but also engages those larger muscles like the deltoid. Now, if you also have a very tight shoulder, if you have, again, a frozen shoulder, if you have arthritis in the shoulder, you may find this sleeper stretch a good one for you. It really just depends on where your restriction lies, whether it's anterior or posterior capsule or cartilage. You lying side on, and essentially, again, you're just using some overpressure to guide your shoulder into a range of motion that's restricted for you. You can read more about that in the Get Moving Plus PDF. Okay, here we have the hand. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. Apologies. Okay, so most people had an issue with hand or fingers. So let's have a very quick look here at the anatomy of the hand and the fingers. So once again, no surprise here, they're all synovial joints. They're all encapsulated with synovial membrane and fluid. They're all long bones, of course, articulating. There is cartilage lining the ends of those long bones. Now, our finger joints here, so these are the ones lined in green, blue, and red. They're our phalanges, what we call our phalanges. Those joints there, those type of joints, they promote and permit, should I say, movement, flexion, extension, mostly. But what they really don't and can't do is rotation, and that's okay. Dexterity is good, but too much, maybe not so good. The thumb joint also permits flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, but not necessarily, again, the rotation. And these are what we sort of call condyloid joints. The word probably doesn't mean anything much, but the fact that you know how they move is most important. The wrist joints. Now, these are these small little bones down here you can see. These are called our carpal bones. And they essentially all sit together in there. They're all very well shaped. They do sit comfortably with each other, and they essentially just slide over each other. And it's allowing sum of all parts, if you will, movement, very much like our spine. In fact, you can even try moving one of your carpal joints. It's called the pisiform or pisiform. The bottom of your pinky finger, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of your palm, you should feel this hard bone that's sticking out. If you gently grab it, you can actually move it around a little bit, and that's a small carpal bone. Interesting. But essentially, our wrist should be able to move in flexion, extension, and it should be able to deviate as well. And again, sum of all parts, if you will, the movement, it does allow you to do some form of, I wouldn't say circumduction, but certainly you can combine some of those movements and provide a semi-circumduction, not necessarily rotational movement. The rotation actually comes from these two long bones here instead, the radius and the ulna. Now, you may have heard a doctor or a physio say, oh, you've got arthritis in the dip joint. Okay, so that's the, that's the distal interphalangeal joint, the dip. This is where that red line is, okay? You may have heard the PIP joint, the proximal interphalangeal joint. So this next knuckle down. So the first one is dip, distal being furthest away from your hand. Proximal, middle knuckle being, I guess, compared to the distal one, closer to your hand. And then we have where the phalanges meet the metacarpals here. And so what you have is the metacarpal phalangeal joint. Never mind the name. I'm just saying you may have heard somebody say the MCP joint, and they're talking about this very first knuckle line here. If you've got arthritis in the thumb in particular, the thumb is quite a common place, of course, but particularly where this long bone here meets this small little carpal bone here, it's called the trapezoid carpal bone. And when they meet, because it has to provide a lot of movement all of the time, which is why osteoarthritis can be due to a lot of movement, repetitive movement, lots of loading or not enough loading over a long period of time. So people who may have done lots of, or their occupation included a lot of this type of movement may have ended up with arthritis sitting in these joints of their thumb. Now, I thought this was interesting. This was taken from a study, albeit 2009, so it's a very long ago. And so when I bring this to you, I'm not saying that this is gold standard or the Bible in where you get arthritis or the different types. But I thought it may be interesting for you, and maybe you can compare. Here we have just general, just run-of-the-mill osteoarthritis. And this is where you may find that you have or get osteoarthritis the most. So then again, you've got the lower joints of the thumb joints all through the thumb. Most of the dips and pips up here. Erosive hand OA, more serious, more degenerative, more inflammatory than OA. Again, is mostly, again, in the dips and the pips. Rheumatoid arthritis, the whole hand is covered. Okay, so it's not just the dips and pips, but it's also, it's also through the carpal bones as well. And then hemochromatosis is another, that's another interesting one as well. If you are a phenotypically have hemochromatosis. So you are, you have a lot of iron loading. And if you do then develop, not everybody with hemochromatosis develops arthritis due to hemochromatosis, but if you do, here is where it may arise in your hand. Very interesting. I'll move on to the exercises because apparently I only have a few more minutes before my computer decides to shut down. Here are some deformities. Now, I will say right now that these are extreme, severe, end stage. This may not be you. These are deformities of those people mostly with rheumatoid arthritis. You have OA and RA, so the comparison here, and you're often left with these different types of nodes, which are just generally due to bony growths. Whereas if you have rheumatoid arthritis or other, particularly if it's an autoimmune inflammatory type, you will get other more significant deviations, like this swan neck deformity here. You'll get ulnar deviation, so you'll get the swaying of the fingers moving off to the side. I can't do it in my own hand. But here in real life, you can see the different deformities here, the bending, that swan neck style deformity, the Boltonnaire deformity on the thumb. As you can see, it's flicking out. It's got flexion with hyperextension, and then you can see down here the fingers moving away. So this is why it's so important to have been diagnosed early and have had the medication that you needed, and maintain that medication as best you can for as long as you can to reduce these severe deformities. So these exercises may help you. We've got a finger stretch and spread. So finger stretch is just doing about 10, 20 of these. You might want to work your way up to that if you haven't done that before. So here we are working all ranges of our fingers in a stretch exercise. If you didn't want to do that, it's very similar. You will place your hand on, this is the ground, this is the table, and you will keep, instead of moving it in and out like so you're not making a fist, you're just doing a finger spread. So it's a different movement altogether. We're not bending and flexing, extending, we're actually doing abduction, adduction of those fingers. Okay, so that's also good. The other one here is a finger lift extension. So I'll try to do it side on so you can see. So one by one, you're going to lift your fingers off the table. Here we have some tendon glides, which is great for those people with any, not any, but many forms of hand or wrist conditions, particularly if you have a trigger finger, for example. Happy to talk about what that is later. I may not get time to do it here. But again, this one promotes the gliding of the tendons through their sheaths, and we want to ensure they stay lubricated. So here we have, it doesn't matter where you start. So you have a hook fist, you take it into the tabletop, you take it into a closed fist without bending the dips, and then you take it to a full fist and you bend the dips. You can go straight back up if you like and start from this position here, or you just take it back up like so. And here you are sliding the tendons of the fingers. Again, really important to ensure that they don't stiffen up. Here we have some passive finger range of motion. So you've got dip and pip and that first line knuckle joint. You can remember how we did passive assisted movement of the neck? Well, here you can do the same for your joint. You just want to sort of jump below or just under the line of your joint or your knuckle, whichever one you're working on. And then all you're going to do is gently lever that joint over using your finger underneath. And you can do it for all your joints, even your knuckle here. And you can gently add a little bit of traction. Okay, 8 minutes. Here we have dexterity and strength. So getting a little container of anything. Here you can see I've got paper clips, spread them out, and using different fingers to create the pincer, collect them all and put them back in the bowl. So using different fingers to create that pincer strength, using the tips of your fingers. Even right now, my pinky and my thumb, oh, I can feel that that doesn't feel as good and as comfortable as my index finger. So ensure that you do this, spread them out and pick them up. You can also squeeze squishy balls, and putty is also really good to work with. Here you might like to do this, the finger spread, not just for range of motion, but then adding some strength to it. So you can get a rubber band. And as you can see in the picture, I'm spreading my fingers apart. You can do all of them. You can do 2 of them. You can use elastic bands. You can use putty. Here we have thumb movement as well, and touching the nail of our finger. So you're actually getting some opposition. So this is a movement that we often lose if we have issues of the thumb and the joints themselves. So doing those movements with a band as well helps. I don't have a tennis ball, just a softball, but you can get your thumb and you can also trace the lines. And see how look at my thumb moving as I'm tracing that line. Again, another great exercise to promote mobility. Passive motion or passive assisted of the wrist. So leaning your elbow on the table, taking your hand, my left hand on top of my right. You want to grab just above the wrist line. And you can add a little bit of traction. So gently pull up, and then promote movement of the wrist. Gently moving into a range of motion that you feel comfortable with. You can do the opposite here. Gently moving into a range of motion that you feel comfortable. And here we have a flexor and extensor stretch. So doing this movement here is using our flexors. So if we want to stretch them, we extend our elbow and we pull our hand back towards us here. And we should get a nice stretch right here. Opposite here, we want to stretch the extensors. So we straighten our elbow and we gently pull our hand. So I rotated my arm over, gently pull my hand back towards myself, and you'll feel a stretch along here as well. So that's also important to do, because those muscles that come down here, some of them stop, but others go through. So we want to ensure those muscles are nice and supple as well. And we can do that by doing these stretches here. And so last but not least, the Get Moving Plus, where is it found? Well, if you go to our website, in this search box, you can type Get Moving Plus. You can also find it on the white panel down the side. Once you've got to this page here where it says Get Moving Plus exercise series, endorsed by both two physios from Royal North Shore Hospital and Canterbury Hospital. Did I say that right? I think so. What you then need to do is you can read the preamble if you like, scroll down the page and you'll see this here. And here you'll find the hip joint, knee, ankle, spine, hand and shoulder. You click onto that, you'll be able to see the PDF, and you'll also be able to see, for the majority of them, the exercises that go along with them. That brings us to the end. I'm going to stop the share and bring us back here. I'm so concerned that my computer is just going to shut down and I don't know, load something that I don't know why it's deciding to do it now. So I do apologize, but we certainly have finished in time. I'm happy to see if I can answer some questions. And if we do cut out, I apologize. That's just the way it goes sometimes. Yes, I understand some people may have a lot of trouble doing these. So again, it's just picking and choosing what works for you. And if there's some exercises here that you've seen and haven't tried before, but you also work with your EP or your physiotherapist or a doctor, you can certainly take those exercises to them and say, hey, well, does this work for me, or can I modify it? So some of these exercises were meant to be done in conjunction with a healthcare provider, because they can pick and choose and modify for you. I'm just reading if there are any questions. If you said thank you very much, you're very welcome. I hope I've opened your eyes. I hope you've learned something. I hope you now can finally get moving plus and see if it helps you. Let me know if you want to know more about different other types of exercises or more about a particular one. You can certainly email me. I can send you out these PDFs, this PowerPoint as a PDF if you want. I'm hoping to get them both part 1 and part 2 into a PDF, and I will post to the actual page as well, so everybody can have access to it if they like. I do apologize if I've missed any other questions. There's a good question by someone here. Again, a few comorbidities happening here. So we have arthritis, but this person also has a carpal tunnel syndrome. If you've got carpal tunnel syndrome, you know that doing this exercise here is not fun, particularly prolonged. So yeah, any excessive flexion of the wrist probably won't do you well. So it's not that you want to avoid it. You still need to be able to move in that particular range, but you may not be able to do it at a repetitively, if that makes sense. If you're having a flare up, if it is a rheumatoid arthritis type condition, you're having a flare, that's your body in an acute state, inflammatory state. So I would say, please don't, if this were any other joint, like a weight bearing, don't do exercise, don't do any high intensity exercise. This is where your body needs to rest. So I'd say the same with the hands. They may be very red, sore and swollen, so you won't want to be going and doing all this anyway. So that's certainly something to mention as well. So flare-up stages, please do not engage in your normal type exercises that are high intensity anyway, but particularly lots of repetitive movements of the knuckles. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you would find that painful. I get a couple of people nodding there. Okay. Unfortunately, in that instance there, you got to write it out, and you got to trust in your treatment plans and protocols. Whatever works for you, you need to apply. And unfortunately, write it out. Once you are recovered, then it's depending on how severe it may have been or is, you'll need to take time as you then start moving again. All right, I've got a minute 18 before I need to shut down and reinstall. I thank you all very much for coming this evening. Lovely to see all your faces, and I will see you next month. Next month, we'll have a new topic. Please don't ask me what that is right now, because I'm actually not too sure. I apologize. Please check out on the website, and I will see you all next month. You're welcome to email me. I will happily reply when I can. All the best and good night.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Sean, I don't know whether you're still on.
Thank you, Kat.
You're welcome. See you later. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I'll leave.
All right. I'll be ending the session now. Good night, all.
And again.